Good evening and welcome to Just the News. I'm Faye D'Souza. This is where we give you all the news that you need just for today. Let's get straight to it. Now, there was, like we told you, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha adjourned 2 days early. But there was a lot of ruckus that apparently happened inside the House of Parliament that we did not see on camera. This is what has happened, played out since then. Leaders of several opposition parties have staged a protest. They walked from Parliament House to Vijay Chowk today. They were protesting against the government. They were protesting against the abrupt end of the monsoon session, the lack of discussion on the Pegasus issue, and the alleged manhandling of women members of Parliament within the Rajya Sabha House. Now, the leaders who actually protested today were Rahul Gandhi, Sharad Pawar, Mallikarjun Kharge, Sanjay Raut, Manoj Jha and other opposition members. Rahul Gandhi told the reporters at the protest march that the parliament session is over, but frankly, as far as 60% of the country is concerned, there was no parliament session as the voice of 70% of the people was crushed and humiliated. In the meantime, though, at the same time, and this is the other side of the story, 8 sitting ministers of government held a press conference today together, which means, you can see the gravity of the situation. If 8 ministers of government held a press conference, they accused members of the opposition of harassing and manhandling women marshals in the House. Now, there are marshals inside Parliament, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, whose job it is to maintain peace and to generally maintain the order inside the House. You will see them in the background of the visuals when you look at the Houses of Parliament. Now, the accusation that was made was that opposition MPs manhandled the women marshals inside of the House. Union Minister Piyush Goyal, who is also the leader of the House in Rajya Sabha, said the group of ministers have already met the chairman and the deputy chairman of the House, and they've made an appeal that the strongest possible action should be taken against opposition MPs for their, what they called, deplorable behavior. On Wednesday, though, which is yesterday, several women Congress MPs alleged that they were physically bullied by the male marshals while they were protesting in the well of Rajya Sabha. Congress's Chaya Verma and Phuludevi Neetam alleged that the male security personnel manhandled them. Now, NCP leader Sharad Pawar has said that in his 55-year career as a parliamentarian, he had never seen such an incident in Rajya Sabha. He alleged that more than 40 men and women marshal and security staff were deployed inside the upper house, including some who were brought in from outside. It is painful. It is an attack on democracy. This is what he has said. Well, that session of parliament has ended, though. The Union Education Minister, Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, on Thursday said that 15 crore children are right now outside of the formal education system. And he said the central government wants to bring them into the formal education system. Now, he was addressing the CII's virtual special session on job creation and entrepreneurship. And he said, and I quote, "Today, 35 crore students are getting education in schools, but still 15 crore are outside the system. We want to bring them in the education system." And speaking of the education system, the Education Ministry has informed a parliamentary panel that the plan to serve breakfast to children in government schools to address the malnourishment problem has hit a wall because the Finance Ministry has refused funding approval for this plan. Now, this is a story in the Economic Times that says that the 4,000 crore rupee breakfast at school proposal is learned to have been held back because of funding constraints by the Finance Ministry. The veto on the breakfast plan comes months after the National Family Health Survey had said that we've had an alarming drop in the nutrition levels of children between 2015 and 2019. So between 2015 and 2019, we've had an increase in the number of malnourished children in India across the board. 18 states have reported an increase in the number of children who are underweight, who are stunted, who are wasted. Now, stunting and wasting is a proportion of height to weight, where basically children do not weigh enough for their age. All under the age group of 5. And this is a very crucial age because this is the time the brains actually develop, and this is when they need to get all the proper nutrition. Now, the breakfast plan was taken up for discussion. Remember, we have a midday meal plan. This is a breakfast plan as well. It was taken up for discussion by a parliamentary standing committee where the Education Ministry confirmed to that standing committee the Finance Ministry's position. The Education Ministry told the panel that keeping in provisions of the National Education Policy, it had taken up a proposal of breakfast at school to extend the midday meal scheme to pre-primary classes, but it had been shot down by the Finance Ministry. I just want to put this into perspective here outside of this story. According to the Economic Times, breakfast at school would have costed 4,000 crore rupees, which the Finance Ministry says it doesn't have money to fund. At the same time, the Central Vista project, which is really a vanity project at this point, cost 20,000 crore rupees, which the government is happy to fund. The Congress party today hit out at the government for what it called scuttling free speech and said the party's Twitter account and several accounts of its leaders were temporarily blocked today for sharing the photograph of the family, the parents of the victim, the 9-year-old victim of who was allegedly raped and murdered in Delhi. Now, that photograph, that Rahul Gandhi had gone to meet the parents of that young girl who was allegedly killed. The photograph showed him sitting in his car with both the parents, and their faces were clearly visible. So this is what had happened. There is a law in India that clearly states that when there is a crime or an alleged crime of a sexual nature that's been committed against a child, no detail of the identity of that child is to be revealed in the media at all, which includes the parent's identity, the location of the child's home, or even the location where the crime had taken place. So in this case, since the parent's identity had been revealed, there was a breaking of that law. Now, the accounts of Rahul Gandhi, Randeep Surjewala, Ajay Maken, Shushmita Dev, Manikam Tagore are among those, including the main handle, that were temporarily locked. Twitter, on the other hand, has put out a statement. Remember, they were locked by Twitter, saying that its rules are enforced judiciously. In a statement, it said Twitter may continue to do so in line with our range of enforcement options. Certain types of private information carry higher risk than others, and our aim is to always protect individuals and their privacy, end quote. Twitter said the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, the NCPCR, had alerted it about that specific content on the platform and alleged that it revealed the identity of the alleged sexual victim and her parents. It added that the matter reviewed in line with Twitter rules as well as concerns expressed in the Indian law. A Delhi court yesterday granted bail to BJP member and lawyer Ashwini Upadhyay, only one day after he was arrested and remanded to 2 days judicial custody in connection with the anti-Muslim slogans that were raised at an event that he apparently organized at Jantar, Mantar. Remember, these anti-Muslim slogans effectively called for genocide of the Muslim community in India. He's been asked to deposit a surety of 50,000 rupees. The court observed, and I quote, "It is not the case where there are chances that the applicant will abscond. The conspiracy is no doubt hatched behind closed doors, and the investigation is present at a nascent stage. However, it does not imply that the liberty of a citizen be curtailed on mere assertions or apprehensions." Earlier, 6 people, including former Delhi BJP spokesperson Ashwini Upadhyay, were arrested in connection with the case that was registered after a video circulated on social media that showed people were raising anti-Muslim slogans at Jantar Mantar in Delhi on Sunday. And on to our COVID updates. India reported 41,195 new cases and 490 deaths in the last 24 hours. Now, for 6 days, we had fallen below 40,000. Now we've gone back up 40,000 after 6 days again. Kerala remains our worst affected state with 21,445 new COVID cases. Also, Maharashtra has announced several COVID relaxations. It's allowed hotels and restaurants to operate till 10 p.m. at 50% capacity across the state. Remember, earlier they were only allowed to serve lunch between noon and 4 o'clock. Other relaxations, weddings, 200 people can attend weddings at 50% capacity in enclosed halls. Malls can stay open till 10 p.m. at night, but starting the 15th of August. But visitors and staff have to be fully vaccinated. So both doses if you want to go to the mall. The state government has also announced that Mumbai's local trains will now resume after the 15th of August, provided you are fully vaccinated for at least 14 days before you get on the train. Maharashtra recorded 5,560 new COVID cases in the last 24 hours. Also, if you're looking to get that second dose in Mumbai, the vaccination drive has been suspended for a couple of days. Because of a shortage of vaccines, it will resume again on Saturday, the 14th of August. On to news right now from the world of business and the economy. According to data released by the government, the country's retail inflation, which is measured in the Consumer Price Index, has come down marginally to 5.5% for the month of July. It was 6.2% in the month of June. Now, the Consumer Price Index measures basically a basket of consumer products that all of us have to buy every month, and it compares it with the price the previous month to see how these items have actually become more expensive. So, about 5.5% on an average is what they have increased by. Now, this is the first time in 3 months that Consumer Price Index has fallen, come below the RBI's upper margin of 6%. Anything above 6% is not a good point to be at. So since we're under 6%, that's good news. In the meantime, India's factory output, which is measured in an index called the Index of Industrial Production. You'll hear a lot about it. It's called IIP. It basically measures how much we're producing in our factories. It's gone up 13.5% in June, and that is good. It means obviously restrictions are easing in many states. Factories are going back to work, and they're producing about 13% more than they produced in the month before June. Mumbai-based edutech startup Eruditus has raised $650 million in a funding round that was led by Japan's SoftBank Vision Fund 2. The fundraise has quadrupled Eruditus' valuation at $3.2 billion. It used to be $800 million last year, making it India's 23rd unicorn in 2021. Eruditus will also become India's 4th edutech unicorn after Byju's Unacademy Upgrad became unicorns as well this year. So a unicorn is a startup that is valued at more than $1 billion. And you'll see that there's some very interesting movement right now in our stock market and in our startup environment. There's a lot of money coming in, and especially companies that are using the internet and using digital spaces more have done really well over the last year and a half. We're considering actually bringing you a show on how to invest in the stock market and how to invest altogether. If that's something that interests you, give us a thumbs up and we'll start working on that as well. Let's move on now to news coming in from across the world. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has said that the country's borders will remain shut until the end of this year. She went on to say that the elimination strategy is the best way to keep COVID out of their country and the economy open. When we move, we will be careful and deliberate because we want to move with confidence and with as much certainty as possible. New Zealand has been lauded for its COVID efforts, and the country has recorded 26 deaths in a population of 5 million people. Germany and Netherlands have temporarily suspended deporting anybody from Afghanistan who winds up in their country because of the tense situation of the Taliban sweeping gains in Afghanistan. So basically, if people from Afghanistan right now have fled Afghanistan and they've reached either Germany or Netherlands, they will not be deported on humanitarian grounds. Now, these two countries are among 6 other European Union member states who last week petitioned the bloc not to suspend returns to Afghanistan. Along with Germany and Netherlands, Finland, Sweden and Norway have also recently announced that they will not be deporting people back to Afghanistan. And here is the reason why. According to news agency AFP, the representatives and the negotiators of the Afghanistan government in Qatar have offered the Taliban a power-sharing deal in an attempt to end the violence in the war-torn region. The Taliban, though, apparently has been reluctant to strike a political settlement with the Afghanistan government after the US-led troops have finalized their withdrawal from the region. This comes a day after the Taliban has seized 3 more provincial capitals in Afghanistan. So sort of like state capitals, they've already taken over, and they've taken over the local army headquarters. They've taken over the customs points at various parts of the border. The Taliban is now in control of 2/3 of the country. And US and NATO are continue to withdraw their forces. Here are the reports that are coming in from the ground. The US actually funded a lot of Humvees vehicles for the Afghan military. The Afghan military in many parts of Afghanistan have abandoned this equipment of drones and vehicles, very expensive stuff that was given to them by the US Army. And the stuff that has been abandoned has now been taken over by the Taliban. So not only have the Taliban fighters been gaining more ground in Afghanistan, they're also gaining equipment and they're also gaining mobility that is being abandoned by the Afghan military soldiers in the Afghan forces, and it's only making them more and more powerful. Of course, as the world sits by and watches right now, the people who will face the worst possible fate if this comes out to play are the women of Afghanistan, who have in the last decade or so gone to university, who have started to find their feet again in that society that had suppressed them for so long. That future now is extremely bleak. According to intelligence reports in the United States, they expect the capital of Afghanistan to fall to the Taliban in less than 90 days. On to a report from Science and Technology at this point. The ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization's GSLV rocket that was carrying an observation satellite malfunctioned about 5 minutes after liftoff. In a statement, ISRO basically said, and I quote, "Performance of the first and second stages was normal. However, the cryogenic upper stage ignition did not happen due to a technical anomaly, and the mission couldn't be accomplished as intended," end quote. Also, Instagram has announced some new features designed to restrict abusive messages during sudden spikes. This is what the new limits will feature. It automatically hides comments and messages from people who do not follow or have just started following users who switch it on. So basically, if you have switched on this feature, it will hide comments and messages from people who do not follow you or who have just started following you. Reports also say that it will give stronger warnings when people try to post offensive language. Instagram is also rolling out its hidden words feature that blocks out abusive DM requests. The new features will apparently be visible to all users soon. According to the BBC, Instagram has said that it is designed to stop abuse from large numbers of people who simply pile on in the moment. One piece of positive news before we leave you for the day. Madhya Pradesh's Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has announced that India's cleanest city of Indore has now been declared the country's first Water Plus city under the Swachh Suvekshan 2021. Now, this is an annual survey of cleanliness, hygiene and sanitation in cities and towns across India, part of the Swachh Bharat mission. The parameters to achieve Water Plus status are, Indore apparently carried out a survey and it halted 7,000 outfalls of grey water into the rivers and drains. 30% of the city's sewage water is recycled and reused. And this recycled water is used by people in their gardens and some construction sites. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Thank you so much for listening. I give you a quiz question, but the answer is not in the bulletin today, so you'll have to do some research. Remember, I told you that ISRO had a GSLV rocket that did not manage to achieve its goal and malfunctioned after 5 minutes. What does GSLV stand for? Leave us the answer in the comments section. I look forward to hearing from you. Also, if you're on YouTube, just leave us a comment anyway. The interaction actually pushes the video up in the algorithm and it pops up in front of more people, so it helps us out. So like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment. Thank you for watching. Good night.